Hello there. How you doing? Tis I. Classic. ASMR classic. I should have tidied my desk a little bit. Hope you're well. Thank you very much indeed for all the comments that you made on our last little video. As I probably mentioned before, we're a small theatre company really. I'm trying to raise some funds to do some new writing, and we're now at 800 subscribers, which is just brilliant. So thank you very much for that. If you have subscribed, and if you haven't, then click the button down wherever it is. I think it's down there. You probably know better than I do. I thought I'd share a bit of a classic with you today. As I've mentioned in the past as well, I came across ASMR where I had COVID actually. And every night now I tend to listen to something just to send me off to sleep, and that's kind of partly what I hope this will do. Oh, and thank you. I can't remember who you are because I can't see you at the moment. Who said this sounded like sort of was it vintage ASMR? I take that as a great compliment, so thank you. I will move this out of the way. We're going to do, I don't know, because I write a lot, and this is, I don't know, is it quite an everyday book, but it's a notebook that I've been keeping for quite a while already, and it's Italian. Letter bound. I'm trying to cut down on meat at the moment, so, but there's a patina, I think is the term. I quite like the fact that this is getting very slightly distressed. Haven't got that much left now though. Anyway, I'll get that out of the way. Oh, and I also, a friend of mine bought me a birthday present, which is rather lovely. This pen, you know, yes. It's ink pen, you know. It's not a fountain pen, but it's quite a nice writer. Mont Blanc. Oh, by the way, none of these are sponsored. I've bought them all, or been bought them. Let me just move that out of the way. Oh, crikey, sorry. I'm at my little writing desk now. Oh, and this is my being an anorak. Recognise that? No, of course you wouldn't, would you? It's Edinburgh. This is my mug. My fringe mug from a couple of years ago. Sorry about the stains, I've just had coffee. And that's actually I think that's the High Street in Edinburgh, where the fringe office is. Lovely city, Edinburgh. Home to the world's biggest open arts festival every August. I think I'm going to have to go up there again. So expensive accommodation, but I've been toying with the idea and floating a few ideas this week. I know a lot of people who said I'll never do it again. It's a bit of a drug, I think, you know. Anyway, that needs cleaning, so sorry about that. Let's get that out of the way. There's me usual little anorak. Oh, and Bill, of course. Every writer's desk should have Bill looking out at them. I think I got this from the RSC in Stratford upon Avon. Is that where you came from, Bill? Yeah. Okay, Verialization goes in there. And then this is kind of what I thought I'd share with you today, this time anyway. Because it's a bit horrific in terms of relaxation. But Mary Shelley, and I got this, the 1818 text of Frankenstein. And again bought it from a local bookshop. There you go. Chiswick in West London. £9.99 bargain. And it's the Frankenstein. Sorry, it's the Penguin Classic version. So it's the original 1818 text, which preserves the hard-hitting and politically charged aspect of Shelley's original writing, with its strong female voice and unflinching wit. Of course, Shelley's parents were quite radical. We'll talk about that perhaps in a minute. Emphasising Shelley's relationship with her mother, trailblazing feminist Mary Wollstonecraft, who penned a vindication of the rights of women. Frankenstein, the 1818 text, demonstrates her commitment to carrying forward her mother's ideals and places her in the context of a feminist legacy rather than the sole female in a company of male poets, including Percy Shelley and Lord Byron. And quite famously, of course, they went away, didn't they? The three of them. And they had a kind of as a lot of young people do, I know we used to do it when we go on scout camps and things, you'd tell ghost stories. Ooh. And the ghost story that Mary Shelley came up with was Frankenstein. So I thought, excuse me, I'm the cold back again. I thought I might share a little bit of this with you. When it first came out, it was published, I should say, anonymously. The writer wasn't named, and it caused a lot of controversy back in the day because of the idea of man playing God, which I suppose, sort of understand. It's close to my heart because I adapted and directed a play version called The Birth of Frankenstein, which in fact we took to the Edinburgh Fringe a couple of years ago, from an idea by Robert Lloyd George, who is the great-grandson of British Prime Minister David Lloyd George. We adapted that story, took it to the Edinburgh Fringe, and it was fairly obvious that Mary Shelley would need to tell the story, which is what I did, so I wrote her as the main storyteller. But this is the original text. I'm never quite sure, you probably know better than I do about copyrights and things. I'm not sure I can go through all of the introduction, but I thought I'd give you a bit of context for it, and then please let me know in the comments if you'd like to hear a bit more. I guess I could go through the whole thing. Anyway, let me know. It's all for you. But this is the Penguin Classic introduction to the 1818 text. Excuse me again, sorry. So, Mary Shelley was born in London in 1797, daughter of William Godwin and Mary Wollstonecraft, famous radical writers of their day. Mary's mother died tragically 10 days after her birth. Under Godwin's conscientious and expert tuition, Mary's was an intellectually stimulating childhood, although she often felt misunderstood by her stepmother and neglected by her father. In 1814, she met and soon fell in love with the then unknown Percy Bysshe Shelley, and in July they eloped to the continent. In December 1816, after Shelley's first wife, Harriet, committed suicide. Wow. Mary and Percy married. Of the 4 children she bore Shelley, only Percy Florence survived. They lived in Italy from 1818 to 1822, when Shelley drowned following the sinking of his boat Ariel in a storm. Mary returned with Percy Florence to London, where she continued to live as a professional writer until her death in 1851. Pretty tough life in a sense. The idea for Frankenstein, oh yes, this is what I mentioned earlier, the idea for Frankenstein came to Mary Godwin, of course, before she was married, during a summer sojourn in 1816 with Percy Shelley on the shores of Lake Geneva, where Lord Byron was also staying. I think it was actually Byron's place, but anyway. She was inspired to begin her unique tale after Byron suggested a ghost story competition. Byron himself produced a fragment, which later inspired his physician, John Polidori, to write The Vampire. That was fun, I'd forgotten about that. Yes, that's in our play as well. Mary completed her short story back in England, and it was published as Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus, in 1818. Among her other novels were The Last Man, 1826, a dystopian story set in the 21st century. The Fortunes of Perkin Warbeck, 1830, in London. Lodore, 1835, and Faulkner, 1837. as well as contributing many stories and essays to publications such as The Keepsake and The Westminster Review. She wrote numerous biographical essays for Lardner's Cabinet Cyclopedia, 1835, 1838-39. Her other books include the first collected edition of Percy Bysshe Shelley's Poetical Works, 4 volumes in 1839, and a book based on the continental travel she undertook with her son Percy Florence and his friends, Rambles in Germany and Italy, 1844. Mary Shelley died in London on the February the 1st, 1851. It's February at the moment, so there's a kind of synergy there. And of course, that's the cover. What I might just do, because I'm aware of time. Excuse me, that's my chair. So this is the introduction by Charlotte Gordon in the Penguin Classic. There's also suggestions for further reading. And then the 1818 text, How to Read Frankenstein by Charles E. Robinson. Chronology by Charles Robinson. Suggested further reading by Charles E. Robinson. He's done quite a bit, hasn't he? Introduction to Frankenstein, 3rd edition by Mary Shelley. And then it goes through the creation of Eve, the King James Bible, Prometheus by Lord Byron, Mary Shelley's letter 1 from the Hotel de Charon, Geneva, in May the 17th, 1816. Excerpts from A Vindication of the Rights of Women by Mary Wollstonecraft. Of course, Mary's mother, and Mary Shelley's diary entry, March 19th, 1815. I'll just give you a little bit of this introduction for context. I think I'm alright to read this out because we're promoting the book, aren't we? So, when Frankenstein was first published in 1818, many readers were shocked. What could be more appalling than the tale of a mad scientist creating life? What kind of person would write such a terrible story? Critics believed the novel was hostile to religion as it depicted a human being attempting to appropriate the role of God. One contemporary writer complained that the book was, quote, horrible and disgusting. He declared that the author must be as mad as his hero. He could not accuse anyone in particular, however, as no one knew the author's identity. Oh, crikey, sorry about that. I thought I'd turn that off. Let me just double check. Okay. Right, I'll just keep that quiet. Sorry, guys. Yes, the author, the truth. Sorry, yes, wait. No one knew the author's identity. The book had been published anonymously, and when people discovered the author's name, the truth seemed even more scandalous than the horrible story itself. The author was a woman, and her name was Mary Shelley. In the 19th century, women weren't supposed to write novels, let alone a novel like Frankenstein. Middle-class women were expected to confine themselves to being good wives, daughters and mothers. For a woman to step outside of her proper domain was against all of society's rules. Critics muttered that Mary Shelley must be as monstrous and immoral as her story, and yet, when they met her, they were surprised to find that Mary was ladylike and reserved. One new acquaintance said that he had thought the author of Frankenstein would be indiscreet and even extravagant, but that he had found her cool, quiet, feminine. It was difficult for Mary's contemporaries to square the boldness of her work with its creator. Instead of being improper or masculine, she appeared to embody their ideas of what womanhood should be. Sadly, those misogynistic principles were the accepted ideas of the time. Yes. Experts declared that women were inferior to men in all areas of human development and could not be considered foolish, fickle, selfish, gullible, sly, untrustworthy, and childish. Wives couldn't own property or initiate divorces. Children were the father's property. Not only was it legal for a husband to beat his wife, but men were encouraged to punish any woman they regarded as unruly. If a woman tried to escape from a cruel or violent husband, she was considered an outlaw, and her husband had the legal right to imprison her. There's a reference to it there as well, I think. This oppressive system began in childhood. Boys were taught they were superior to girls. Girls were instructed to submit to their brothers, fathers, and husbands. The education of middle and upper class young women was confined to activities such as playing the piano, speaking French, embroidering and singing, decorative skills that would help them appear attractive to prospective husbands, but would not teach them to think for themselves. Incredible, isn't it? Dear, where's my jeering? Any serious scholarship was strongly discouraged, as too much study seemed like a dangerous proposition, not so much for the world, but for the women themselves. Were their constitutions strong enough for such exertion? Should they learn more than basic skills such as how to write their names, add and subtract and read simple passages? Most people thought the answer was no. Given their fragility, women should not be taxed too much. Besides, too much book learning could destroy a woman's life and ruin her prospects for marriage. If you happen to have any learning, keep it a profound secret, warned one father. Even that great champion of liberty, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, could not conceive of girls possessing the same natural rights as boys. He argued that women were created to be the helpmates of men. The education of women should always be relative to men. To please, to be useful to us, to make us love and esteem them, to educate us when young and take care of us when grown up, to advise, to console us, to render our lives easy and agreeable. These are the duties of women at all times, and what they should be taught in their infancy. The irony is that even as the upper classes were discussing Rousseau's ideas in their elegant salons, their daily needs were being met by the hard labour of their female servants. No one thought that a girl hauling the wood upstairs to the fire might be too fragile for such chores. Instead, the serving classes were generally treated as beasts of labour, women and men alike. Ultimately, this inequity would lead the working class to rise up and demand their rights. In 1789, the lower classes stormed the Bastille, the infamous prison in Paris, and started the French Revolution. English radicals supported the revolution's goal. Many have connected the revolution with the birth of Romanticism, a movement that promoted the rights of the individual and freedom for all humanity, including women, slaves, and working men and women. In England, however, there was a backlash against the excesses of the revolution. Although the English romantic poets, Wordsworth, Coleridge, Byron, Keats and Shelley, were inspired by romantic ideals, many people were afraid that too many French ideas would disrupt the stability of English life. And so instead of protesting the oppression of the working classes, or for that matter being outraged at the restrictions that women faced, the ordinary person accepted them as the standards of the day. Middle-class women cultivated their delicacy, regarding weakness as an asset in their search for husbands, at the same time that they were asserting their elevation over their maids. If a woman fainted easily, could not abide insects, feared thunderstorms, ghosts and highwaymen, ate only tiny portions, collapsed after a brief walk and wept when she had to add a column of numbers, she was considered the feminine ideal. Fortunately, the author of Frankenstein, Mary Shelley, had little patience with such notions. She was the proud daughter of the famous radical Mary Wollstonecraft, the author of Vindication of the Rights of Women. Although Wollstonecraft died 10 days after giving birth to Mary, Mary was still profoundly influenced by her mother's ideas. A large portrait of Wollstonecraft hung on the wall of Mary's childhood home. The girl studied it, compared herself to her mother, and hoping to find similarities. Mary's father, William Godwin, a noted political philosopher and novelist, held up Wollstonecraft as a paragon of virtue and love, praising her genius, bravery, intelligence, and originality. He even taught young Mary how to read by tracing the letters on her mother's gravestone. Except for Wollstonecraft, her mother's name was the same as hers, Mary Godwin. I'll kind of leave it there for a moment because I'm aware of the time, but goodness me, 1800s, a couple of hundred years ago, such a foreign land. And hopefully, although, without getting into the current politics of the day, we've moved on since then, so what I might do, if you'd like to perhaps hear a bit more, next time I'll start to read the actual bit of Frankenstein, because even the format of the real stories, particularly this 1818 text, is quite unique. But I'll stop now because of the time, and I hope you get some enjoyment out of that. Please let me know in the comments if not, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. I think if we get to 1,000 we can monetize it, but again, you probably know more about that than I do. So thank you again for your time. I hope all is well with you. And as Charles Dickens says, God bless us everyone.